Today we're going to be learning about circles. Open up your notes packet to the section entitled Circles on page 7. The first thing we need to do is label the circle. The radius is the distance from the center of a circle to the edge of a circle. The blue line marks the radius of the circle above. The diameter is the distance from one edge of the circle to another edge of the circle that passes through the center of the circle. The line in red marks a diameter of the circle. The circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle, and I'm going to highlight that right now. When we talk about circles, it's inevitable that we have to talk about the number pi. Pi is 3.1415926535, etc., and it's actually the ratio of circumference to diameter. So it's the ratio of the distance around the outside of the circle to the distance across the circle. It's not a number that anyone made up, it's just a natural ratio that occurs in circles. We have two formulas when we work with circles. One of them is for the circumference. Circumference is pi times the diameter of the circle. Now, since we know that the diameter of a circle is twice the radius, we can also write this as circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, because 2 radiuses equal the diameter. The other formula that we often use is for the area. The area of a circle is pi r squared, where area equals pi times the square of the radius. And let's look at why this is true. We see that we could take our circle and slice it into several wedges, and then put those wedges in alternating directions, and we get a shape over to the right that looks kind of like a parallelogram with bumpy edges. Notice that if you were to highlight the outside of the circle, or the circumference, that half of that would be on the top of this funny looking shape, and half of it would be on the bottom. We can also see that the radius in our circle is actually the height of the shape that we're making over to the right. Now let's look at what happens when we cut more smaller pieces of the circle. Our shape that we're creating starts to look more and more like a rectangle, or a parallelogram at least. Notice that the height of the rectangle is our radius, and the length, or the base of the rectangle, or parallelogram, is half of the circumference, because we have half at the bottom and half at the top. And we know that the circumference is 2 times pi times radius, which means that since we only want half of this, we can actually just get rid of that 2. So our base of our rectangle that we've created, or the base of the parallelogram, is pi times radius. That's our base. And our area, we know, is going to be base times height, and our height is our radius. So we have pi times r, which is just pi times radius squared. That is why the area formula for a circle is pi radius squared. Now let's try some examples. Example 1 has a circle with a diameter of 80. Finding the radius is easy because the radius is half of the diameter, and half of 80 is 40. So our radius is 40 feet. Next, it asks for the circumference. Circumference, we know, is pi times diameter. We also could use 2 times pi times the radius, but since we're already given the diameter, we should use this formula. So we have pi times 80, and we typically are going to use 3.14 for pi. So if you plug in 3.14 times 80 into your calculator, or do the calculation over to the side, you get 251.2. Keep in mind that this is a distance, so we have 251.2 feet, not feet squared. Finally, we're asked for the area. As always, we write our formula, area equals pi r squared, and we want to fill in our numbers. So we have 3.14 times our radius, which we already found is 40, and we're squaring that. This is 3.14 times 40 times 40, or you can use the squared button. which is 5,024. Since we're doing area, this means that we have 5,024 feet squared. I'm going to let you try number 2 on your own because it's similar to number 1, and we'll discuss it tomorrow if you have questions. The last example we'll do together is number 3. It says, what is the radius of a circle with circumference 75 and 36/100 inches? This is a little bit different because it gives us the circumference and it's asking for the radius. So the first thing we always do is write the formula. I chose to use this formula for circumference rather than the one with diameter because we're being asked for the radius. So circumference, or 75 and 36/100 equals 2 pi, which is 3.14, times the radius. Now I draw my line and I solve. First I multiplied my 2 and my 3.14, and next I'm going to do the inverse operation of multiplication, and I will divide both sides by 6.28. And I get 12. So my radius is 12 inches. Try number 4, and don't forget to complete number 2. We will talk about these tomorrow.